Good evening. Tonight, we're continuing the solo challenge, which means we're attempting to do content in Final Fantasy XIV, whether we can do it, and see if we can do it alone. Synced, of course. This time, we're continuing towards Doma Castle. And since last stream, we started just doing big wall-to-wall pulls just to see if we can. So, hopefully it goes well. I have heard some people say that the Doma Castle has a particularly brutal pull right at the start and also in the middle. So who knows if I can even do it alone. But we will do it synced. After A Realm Reborn, dungeons start to have a very wide span between the minimum item level to enter and the synced item level, which means that the difference between choosing minimum item level and not is typically over 20% HP, which tends to make the difference where it's potentially no longer possible to actually solo it, which we experienced among other places in the vault, where I had two, like, even with warrior, you know, broken OP warrior with raw intuition in the vault, couldn't keep up with the damage output of the first boss, and it wasn't even close. It was no chance, at least from my perspective. So instead of going in at minimum item level and spending a lot of time trying to make it work, we'll just go in synced and try to, like, pull more aggressively, because often the bosses are like, either you can do it or you can't, or but the mob packs tend to be the part where it gets really interesting, especially if you pull really big, whether it's possible. Like, for example, last time we managed to do the Giga pull in Shisui of the Violet Tides. A lot of people say that it's really, really difficult to do in a normal party, but turns out Warrior can solo it. Not in a conventional way, mind you, not in the slightest, not even close. We had to, like, just imagine, like, your random Scooby-Doo chase scene, and just imagine that happen for, like, 15 minutes. That's how you do it. So, on the other hand, and I'll actually get to exactly that, Phil, the big mega pull right at the start of Bottom's Medal can't be done because the Halgai shoots the small puffballs. Yeah, not the big monster creatures or the big rocks. Specifically, the tiny small bushmen, the tiny puffballs, they shoot arrow at you, so by the time you've pulled everything, you're at half HP, and you can't kite them. Not very well. So they're going to wear you down. What makes the Shisui pull possible is that there's like 2 ranged mobs. In the Bottom's Medal pull, there's 5. Look how the magic says, how does the first boss of the vault stun end up working when solo? Oh, they just use it on the tank. They just use it on the tank. Also, hey Steve, Gleaming, Matthew, Bob, Aradel, Tristan, Phil, and look at the Magi. I hope you're all doing very well. Phil says, was Bottom's Medal possible? Yes, actually. Aside from the big mega pull right at the start with the ranged mobs like that, Bottom's Medal wasn't a big issue. On the second boss, you would think it would be impossible because of the pillars, but if there's only one player, there's actually only one pillar. So the encounter actually scales, so the entire dungeon can be soloed just fine. I'm not sure why they added that, but they did. And look how the Magi says, so the same reason why the big threats in Stone Vigil are the dragonflies and the sprites. Exactly. Precisely. That is actually, like, that was something that I think I brought up many times in my wall-to-wall pull video, was that many pulls became harder because ranged mobs. The thing is that if the healer is prepared for it and keeps the tank fine as they're pulling, then the mobs being ranged becomes kind of insignificant. Like, you can deal with that. In a group, the ranged mobs pretty much just make it so that the tank will take way more damage before they have even reached the destination. But in a solo situation, the thing that makes tank, like, I've mentioned this before, but while Raw Intuition and Bloodwetting makes warriors in an AoE pool like nigh immortal, the thing is, you have to actually survive until you can use Raw Intuition and Bloodwetting again, and if you're completely alone, then you will run out of defensive cooldowns. And you may run out of healing tools. And the best way to like alleviate that problem is if there's no ranged mobs, or there's not a lot of ranged mobs, you just like turn on the chase scene music and then you just run. You just run back to the entrance of the dungeon if that's what it takes. And when you reach a wall, just turn around and run the other way. Usually you can use Raw Intuition as you're running through them. So you can just run laps in the entire dungeon. The earlier a really difficult pull happens, the less space you have to run in. But that is really what makes it is, if you can run for like 20 seconds and survive from the like smaller amounts of damage you'll take while running, then you can do it. Like, then most pulls are possible. If you can survive between Raw Intuitions, then you can do it. It makes an encounter trivial. Gleaming says, I assume pillars scale like that because they're anticipating small friend groups playing through the game together, maybe? I don't think so, because they have specifically added duty support after all. So if you were alone playing through Final Fantasy XIV, you would be doing Bottom's Medal with these people. And they'll do the mechanic right. I'm sure they'll actually spread and take one pillar each. I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure they will. So it's a non-issue, right? But if you were to go into the dungeon as a smaller group, then it would matter. It would be the difference between whether the dungeon is soloable or not. Also, hey Asher, Brinicle, hope you're doing well. Right, so we're starting with Doma Castle. Just for anyone curious, I'm basically just using my max level equipment, with the only exception that I'm using the Shadowbringer's relic weapon, because it is completely customizable on its secondary stats. You might be wondering why we would have 117 in each stat. The simple reason for that is that when you get scaled down in content, the way that the game actually handles this is it doesn't actually change the stats on your equipment, it just reduces the amount of stats the equipment is allowed to have. What's a good example for demonstrating this? Do I have any? There it is. So you can see these available materia enhancements. These basically demonstrate how much of each stat can be on the gear. There are actually limitations for all stats on a piece of equipment, which means the physical damage, strength, vitality, and so on all have limitations like this. And the limitation is primarily dictated by the item level. So the only thing they really reduce is the item level, and then however many stats can fit on it of the stats on the gear will be what you have. So if you bring a relic weapon that just has a lot of everything, when you get scaled down, it will still have a lot of everything. It will have at least as much as it can have of everything. And this will actually be fully maxed out until item level 310, I believe. Let's see. If you had two friends, you'd be able to go in with just just those two friends into the 3 pillars. I wonder if there would be 3 pillars if you were 3 in there. Because there was 1 pillar if you're 1, there's 3 if you're 4 players. So I wonder if it's like how it scales. Could be that it's just 1 or players minus 1. Or it's 3 if there's 3. Or more. Who knows? I was happy that we actually were allowed to do it because of that. But there would normally be 3 pillars. So that's why it's a little weird. That's why I think a lot of people assumed that it wouldn't scale, specifically because there's not 4 pillars in the dungeon, in the boss fight. There's 3. Matthew says, scaling to instance players happens in a bunch of unexpected cases. For example, the P9S attacks that retarget and hit players multiple times. If people are dead only... if people are dead only for one, you're solo. So they, like, that fight actually... That's very interesting. Does that mean that the body check scales in a way? Right, anyway... There's something quite interesting that I discovered when I went into Doma Castle to take the thumbnail picture. In my wall-to-wall pull video, I was told that the pull from here, so that's over there with the giant, from here to here can actually be pulled into the boss room. That is wrong. At least it is wrong now. I can't say for certain whether it was right before the dungeon changes with duty support, but it's no longer possible. I also discovered something else very interesting. That door opens when you kill these guys, irregardless of whether you kill those guys. So if we can kill these slashers alone, we would actually be able to continue the pull. I don't think we will be able to do that, but I'll give it a good old try. And speaking of a good old try, I'm getting as much damage as I can before I run out of ability to tank it. Surprisingly low damage from these mobs. A scaling body check. Well, you see, Steve, the reason is that the cat wants to be where your attention is. It's not about whether it can find a good place to sleep. It's about finding a good place to sleep where it has your attention. Exactly. That is a pretty interesting information, Phil. I'm mainly highlighting it because in my wall-to-wall pull video, multiple people claimed that you could actually pull everything from the giant and up into the boss room. Although they were a little vague about it. Boink. Oh look, door opens. But I did really try. Like, I actually killed each mob one at a time to see which one would trigger opening the door. Just in case it was like some specific trick that I was oblivious to. But I killed every mob at the end before it actually opened the door. This might be very, very overzealous, but I'm going to give it a shot. Hello, Charles. Says it's the machine spider thingies. Well, for that door it is, because it's the second pack of that particular pull. So that I assume they assumed, well, you'd surely kill those second, or something. Wow, there's something in this pack that is hitting like an actual freight train. It's so much damage, and I'm pretty sure it's not the ones that are near death. Phil says every time Kai hits a ball intuition, my internet lags. Ah. Oh. We need to have enough HP to actually engage the mobs for this to work. I wonder if it's because it has to produce all of the sounds of raw intuition and it makes it lag. Ow. Hmm. Hmm. That is weird. It shouldn't lag from that. Hmm. Ow. Sprint is mitigation, as they say. Ow. Are there a lot of people that are getting lag spikes when I use raw intuition? That is concerning. That shouldn't happen. Steve says, if you have to do all the running back and forth, wouldn't smaller pulls be quicker in the long run? Yes, but we're not here to do it quickly. We're here to get challenged. It would have been quicker if we just brought 3 other players after all, right? But you're absolutely correct, Steve, that if I just did 1 pack at a time, we would probably get through it much faster at the end of the day. You're absolutely correct on that. See, hey Nikolaus, hey No, hey Vjek. That's very weird. It slows down specifically when I click raw intuition. That is really, really weird. I have absolutely not the faintest idea why it would do that. Even the internet gets the fuzzy feels when raw intuition or bloodwetting gets off. I'm also tanking the internet somehow. I'm sorry to hear that. Not much I can do about it. The warrior healing is too powerful. We might, maybe I can just tank it kinda normally now. Maybe. Ow. And then the Colossus is like, no, you can't. That's not how this game works. Thank you, Aria. Mastermind says, has a question. I'll check the question after the pull. Or maybe now when the pull has died down even more, it might be fine. Maybe not. That Colossus really hits hard. Let's say my material meld priorities are crit, determination, directed. Should I prioritize a plus 18 crit or 32 determination? In nearly all cases, you should prioritize more stats over better stats. So that means that you should choose 32 determination over 18 crit. I say nearly all situations because sometimes there can be like very unique situations where those 18 crit matters more. There's also, like, if you really get into optimizing, like super optimizing, then there can also be situations where, because stats have breakpoints, like you don't actually get like exact value out of every single point of crit you have. It's more like every 9.5 crit, if I remember correctly, that actually adds power to your character. So if, for example, your current stat situation is perfectly such that you get 2 increments of crit from 18, but you also only get like 2 or 3 from determination, then it might be the case that crit is better. But you can pretty consistently just go with more stat better, right? Even though it's your second or third priority, more stat better. No, says you can check Elegant Studies for your breakpoints and how to calculate them if you need help to figure out. Yeah, you can also check Arc Morning. That's where I usually go. 10 minutes before the first boss, faster than my average dungeon duty finder. Oof. Now let's see if we can actually kill it, right? I could have late weaved that instead. Hopefully it doesn't come back to bite me. It did. Wonderful. We love it when that happens. Thank you, Nikolaus. Ah, perfect. Seems like the sudden tank busters are naturally lining up with my raw intuition. Can you pull the boss out of the room? Never tried making the boss leave the boss room. If you try to pull a boss out of the room, in most cases the boss will reset when it takes one step out of the boss room. On some really, really rare occasions, you can sometimes fight the boss while they're standing inside the boss room and you're outside it, I believe. But it's like not very common that that actually works. Thank you, Manu. But in most cases, like if you accidentally pull a boss in a boss room like that, you can reset the boss and just like undo by just exiting immediately. Like before the door closes behind you, of course. I can already see that if we had entered this fight like minimum item level, the boss would have overwhelmed me with damage, because it's actually like it is requiring a lot of healing on my part to just stay on top. I don't think this would have worked at minimum item level. Like if we completely disregard the part that I did that Giga pull, which also wouldn't have worked at minimum item level. But as you can see, like the boss is like halfway done, and we're kind of at a point where it's relatively reasonable to be able to conclude whether it can or cannot be done. Whereas with the trash packs, it's a lot more common that it's very much up in the air whether you can actually beat it. Even halfway through a pull. So unless the boss suddenly has like something special up its sleeve, this is already an ended fight. Like there's nothing that can be done to stop me winning. It's just a matter of like consistency. Like it could really quickly go south if I start getting hit by the small robots. But as long as I'm not suddenly taking avoidable damage, I think we're good. I could have late weaved that. That is an interesting point, Charles. Maybe they will, but even if they don't, that's probably fine, because you don't wipe if you ignore that mechanic on the second boss. Which I learned because not everyone bothers to do the mechanic. Imagine losing damage by doing a boss mechanic, right? That's also true, Phil, that in recent memory, that boss tends to die before that mechanic can become a problem. Last Might says, been having a lot of melding setups where I could either put a Savage aim 9 or a Might 10 and usually just lean towards more stats. More stats is usually always better. Come on, I need to have the biggest DPS. The mechanics are there for me to soak, to make sure the healer does not get bored. That's a really good one. Thank you, Nicholas. Let's see if we can actually do this. So the thing that made me not feel that this pull is particularly scary, all things considered, is that, like, look, first we have this, now we have to wait a little bit for the turrets to resolve. But if you're in a normal group where people can attack while running, which usually they can, at least something, most of the mobs we're pulling here will be not doing super well by the time we reach the final destination. Now, the thing is, these mobs are actually hitting really, really hard. So me having to stop here specifically is a massive issue being solo. And now we have to get out of this this area where I can't move safely. And it seems a lot of the mobs have mini tank busters. Which tends to inflate the difficulty of packs, just in general. Oh, there was a wall there. Oh man! All of these mobs have the damage potential to almost instantly kill me from full HP if they get each one hit. Just one is all they need. That is very, very scary. I have to consider that when I'm walking into them. It's really painful when we have to go around the corners, because that's when they all get like a free hit. Just a nice little mini smack in my side. It's very painful. I think it's the dog that is the one that is doing the most damage. Because it's using this reckless charge thing, I think. I think that's the one that is doing it, at least. Because there's less of it now that there's less dog. I'm guessing it's the Reaper that's doing the photon stream attack. So that one is a little bit off the table. It's simply too far away when I go in for my cleaves. What is it doing over there? It's just avoiding damage by not being in the pile when I'm attacking. What are you doing? No says I've noticed something. Maybe I'm a bit crazy, but I feel like high level tanks, say level 90 with tome or better gear, tend to take more damage in low level dungeons compared to someone geared near its level. Why could that happen? The thing is, if you're geared near your level versus being synced down, that is actually like that alone will not make the difference. Like, just simply put, that is not going to make a difference. However, if, let's say, you had someone that had like full like max level gear that is synced down, they will be equivalent in gear to someone that had a gear piece on every piece of equipment with all of the stats on the gear, not the materia, just the gear itself, maxed. Assuming it's like a low-level dungeon. And the reason why not the materia is because when you get synced down, your materia stops working for some reason. They just turn off as part of the syncing process. So if someone had like the highest possible item level equipment for a piece of content, fully melded and maybe even over melded, it might be possible for such a player to have more stats than someone who's getting synced down. The probability of that being true is very low in most cases. The best you can do is like, well, with overmelding you might be able to do it on like helmets, gloves, boots. But for the most part, it like the power difference is nearly nothing. So I think what's actually happening, no, is something a lot more interesting. Because if the fully max level tank thinks that the dungeon is beneath them, thinks it's too easy, thinks that they don't have to give it 100% to beat it, then they might not. Similarly, they might not be as familiar with the toolkit they have in that level range, so they might be not using their toolkit correctly. Like, for example, a warrior would be used to having raw intuition or bloodwetting, but if they land in stone vigil, they don't have that. They just don't have that, so they have to work with the far inferior toolkit. In fact, in Stone Vigil, while Warrior turned out to be, I believe, the one that could solo the dungeon when I was doing it, it was by like an extremely slim margin, and it had something to do with Warrior's capacity to self-heal, not so much its ability to reduce damage. So in a situation where you're actually trying to reduce damage, a Gunbreaker is likely to do better because they have camouflage, for example. So Warrior might not be the godlike super immortal mega tank that it is at max level when you get synced down, and the max level player might not be well acquainted with that reality, so they will play worse. And the way you observe it as a healer is that the tank is taking more damage than they should, right? That's my suggestion, because I don't think it's a gear issue. Right! Now we can get back to the rest of the dungeon. In retrospect, I should have pulled that mob closer to where we were. But that's what I think. No, maybe someone else has a suggestion what it could be. And yeah, as Phil says, getting messed up by Dark Knight not having TDN when below 70. Very true. Very good example. And hey, Zach, I hope you're doing well. Thank you. But it shouldn't be the gear, at the very least. It shouldn't be the gear. So I'm pretty confident that it is more likely that it is something like that. It's a, well, the meme way to say it would be, say, skill issue, right? But it would actually, it would be a more likely that it has something to do with the way that the tank plays. Like, it's a similar thing to I've talked about this before. When you see a legend title player, you know, the ones that have cleared one or more ultimates, fail extremely mundane mechanics in normal content and dying to it, or otherwise just failing completely, when that just shouldn't happen, right? But part of the reason that that happens is because they might not feel the need to go full performance mode when doing normal content. You could say it's beneath you to do that. Sometimes it's also just because these ultimate raiders or savage raiders just use it as like not thinky time, so they're just not trying nearly as hard. That is, of course, they don't have to be perfect just because they can be perfect, but the point is that they're not giving it 100% because they don't think it's necessary, and then sometimes they'll go so lower bound on how much effort they're putting in that it becomes a problem. Hypothetically. And this is, of course, not something that I'm saying everyone's doing, and it's not something that I'm saying that that anyone in particular is to blame for. It's simply that it's an observation that a lot of people have made. That's a lot of damage. I need to keep a defensive cooldown for every single time that it uses the stack marker. I don't know how often it does that, but we need to be ready for it every single time, or I'm going to die. Uh-oh. That is, I thought that was going to be a problem. I think that gives a vulnerability stack if you let it go through, and I don't think I can deal with that. Ah. Well, I can take one of them, I guess. Oh, no vulnerability stack, so we might be okay. Can you relax with those, maybe? It looks like it does the same damage whether you take it or not. So I might just ignore it. If that's how it's going to be. Oh, man. I'm not going to live this. Apparently I am. Can I stun you? No, I can't. Then I think I'm dead now. 8,000. I should have used home gang for that in retrospect. Zach says, question, if you use Shake It Off, do one. See, do one. Shake It Off. Or the other skills like Thrill of Battle. Oh, I think I'm going to have to. I'm assuming that you're asking, should you use? It's either should you use Shake It Off with Thrill of Battle, etc. on, or should you not? Is that right? I had actually completely forgotten that it has this interaction. I would say most situations you shouldn't. Like, in nearly all situations. In nearly all situations, it's better to use Shake It Off and then Vengeance and so on, so that you don't waste them. Because the extra damage absorption that it adds is very small compared to the damage reduction that it removes by eating it. But there might be some really like niche situations where you might need it. But usually it's down to whether you need the protection or if someone else needs the protection. Yeah, in most cases, I would say you probably shouldn't. Wait a minute. I think I took more damage from the rockets there. Does that ignore damage reduction? It did 8,000 when it killed me on the previous try. This one it did 10,000. So does it just ignore damage reduction with the stack marker? That is very concerning, but that does mean I should save my my damage reduction for basically anything else. I think the pillars do half damage when you intercept them. Let me try one more time with this. Nope, that was the same damage as when I used Vengeance, so it's completely ignoring damage reduction. That is concerning. In that case, it might be better to use Thrill of Battle when the stack marker comes up. So that I have more effective health. Exactly, Matthew. That was also what I was thinking. It's unique damage, so it might just ignore damage reduction. Better idea. I use home gang for this one. And of course I use home gang exactly so that I had to just eat this. Oh man. Another one. Can you stop with that? Can you stop with this? Maybe? I just need to use it so that I get it on cooldown so I can use it again sooner. It's just, it's really like, it feels like a DPS race because I don't have the tools to deal with everything. I'm guessing this does around 10,000 damage. Yup. Oh, did you see that? I healed a split second too late. Oh, that's so close. And that is also true, Gleaming. Like, you're not supposed to, like, remember every single mechanic in the game off the top of your head. In any situation. It's actually a quite interesting thing that I've seen on my video about mentor roulette is that there are genuinely, I'm not making this up, there are a selection of players that believe that to be a mentor, remember a mentor, not god of gaming, just a mentor in Final Fantasy XIV and being able to teach other players. You have to be able to know front to back every single extreme in the game and be able to do it consistently. Also, you need to have completed the current Savage raid and preferably at least 1 or 2 ultimates. Otherwise, you're not good enough to be a mentor. According to some players. So, like, you don't have to do that. And a normal player also don't have to do that. So it's perfectly normal that if there's a difficult fight, you might sometimes wipe a few times. Even if you're supposed to know it. I just thought that was an interesting observation. I've seen it multiple times. That some people claim that that's how good a mentor should be. I should have used that with Thrill of Battle. Oh well. It's very awkward because the scariest mechanic that I need to deal with doesn't care about damage reduction, so I kind of have to like stockpile HP by dealing with other mechanics more efficiently, just so that I have the HP to deal with the one that I can't actually like do correctly. This is indeed the time for a defensive cooldown. Ow. Oh, will it still last? I sure hope it will. Seems like I just barely managed to perfectly line it up there. I didn't expect this to be so like this particular boss to be so difficult. Very surprising, that's for certain. I messed up the thrill of battle thing again. Exactly, no. It really shines a light on how scary these mechanics are supposed to be, right? It is very scary, and I think I'm going to die. Possibly. I don't know if it actually matters, but I don't want to find out if it does. Whew. We did it! Thank you, Aradel. Yeah, exactly, Gleeping. When you do a boss fight for the first time and you go and you see them do something, you're not sure what you're supposed to do about it, so you're just like, oh no. Now, back to doing big AoE pulls. Feels like ultimate proc. Ethereal Oblivion, you should keep in mind that that only matters if the attack you're trying to survive is percentage based. Or your healing is percentage based. Otherwise, Thrill of Battle both increases the amount of HP that you have and heals you for the same amount. And when the effect goes off, your max HP just changes, so there's no reason to click it off. Not necessarily, at least. If you don't have the HP anyway, that's of course a different story. But it is a 20% HP heal regardless of whether you turn it off or not. Oh, sorry. Sorry, you literally said that. You literally just said that. My bad. My bad. You just said that. You just said that. That one that comes to mind is soloing Behemoth 180 in Palace of the Dead, which does percentage-based HP. You're absolutely right. Sorry. That's what I get for trying to read a comment while doing a big, massive AoE pull, right? Sorry. Matthew says, I was told everything was easy after 56. Me too. Weird. What a strange coincidence. Yeah, I heard the same thing. A lot of people claim that all wall-to-wall pulls a little easy mode with and all content almost. All casual content is easy mode with a warrior at 56 plus. Game's not hard, players bad is what I hear a lot recently. I'm pretty sure that door doesn't open. Maybe I messed up and didn't do the biggest wall-to-wall pull I could have done right there. Sorry about that. That's a strong boy. Exactly, no. I have seen multiple times with people saying, what's it? One version is when you get Bloodwetting or even Raw Intuition, you don't need any other cooldowns because it's so good. You also don't need a healer. And then, like, what I picture is, like, a warrior just, like, surviving with 1 point of HP by sheer chance, going, this is easy. The other one that I've seen is people going, I don't even need to use defensive cooldowns because I stack tenacity. And then I just picture the healer in that situation. Like, I'm just imagining the healer in front of me. Like, I wonder how the healer's feeling about that. They probably don't like you very much. Let's just say that. Fel says, I wonder what the overlap between game too easy players and genuinely good players is. That is also a pretty good question. I do wonder what the overlap there is as well. The healer in that situation is preparing to kill you themselves. But I do wonder about that, Phil. I would imagine that the players that say all content is easy, players just bad, might very possibly, very possibly be players that mainly play in, like, their own friend group. So they don't, like, it's not even a question whether it's easy to do content, because they do all content with their friends who are good. And because other people are having trouble, that's because they are not good. Ethereal Oblivion says, it's hard to know sometimes when boss attacks are raw damage or percentage based. That is true. That second boss I suspected was not percentage based because it was a stack marker. that was doing so much damage to me specifically, so I kind of just assumed it was just based on my HP, or based on us fixed damage, I should say, and not based on my HP. I should actually probably just focus my damage on the big guy here, so that I have the ads to use raw intuition on. That's a good idea. I should have thought about that earlier. Can I stun you? I can. The diminishing returns reset. Fatman says, I just did my first run of E7, and that is a tough normal rate to try and read on the first pull. Yeah, Iconoclasm? Birds, anyone? That is an incredibly evil one. I absolutely agree. Let me just wait for cooldowns. I think the No says, I think the game is most easy in casual content. Some of it can still present a case where you need to try. I think what makes most casual content harder is there are a lot of players who are either not trying or just don't understand what they're doing, and that is very true. I have talked about this before, that actually as a healer, sometimes it can be more fun to heal a group that don't know what they're doing, because it means that you can do a lot more, whereas when everyone knows what they're doing, you don't have to. You know what I mean? So like in normal content, it's pretty often that you can get by without needing to do like very much as a healer if everyone knows what they're doing. But absolutely, what can make a fight really hard is if no one knows what they're doing, or very few know what they're doing. And the more creative and experienced the players in your group are, the better they can deal with an unexpected situation. Like, for example, my first go of P12 normal, so the final raid of the current raid tier on normal, we had so many deaths throughout the fight that there was a stack marker near the end of the fight where my co-tank, which was a warrior, he got a stack marker on him and he just like ran away with it and used home gang, because he just calculated that we weren't even enough people to take it. So he just went and solo tanked it, because he didn't believe that it could be done otherwise. A less experienced tank would absolutely not have done that. Uh-oh. Oh, right, he doesn't turn when he's doing that. That's just free uptime for me. Nice. Boom. Oh, that's just mechanic. That's just annoying. Can I dodge that? I don't think I can, but oh boy. Place you over here, and then run the other way. Can you not run away from me? What are you doing? This is he didn't used to do it like that, I don't think. But they reworked him to go to the center for something here. They also removed the bounce lines when he puts the proximity AoE on you. We go together! Whoops, I messed up my combo there. I agree, Aridel. Like, the bosses oh, they didn't remove it, they just put it way later, apparently. Big brain strats. Use the knockback both to clear the area and simultaneously place the proximity AoE where you want it. Very true, Idolet. If the boss resets to the middle repeatedly, there's a better chance the AI can know where they need to go. Uh-oh. Oh, that gave me a lot of time to move. Didn't expect that. Can you stop walking away from me when I'm using raw intuition? This is new. I'm not sure which way they're going. Can you? Excuse me.
Die, die, die!
What? Huh? That makes no sense.
You will die!
No, I won't. I'm feeling pretty good right now.
We go together!
Wink. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Die, die!
Oh. I don't think I've ever heard him say like that before. What? Die, die! Hey, gigantic pyro! This is a very nice OST.
Die, die, die!
I don't want to! Can you stop screaming at me, Greenrod?
We go together!
No, we don't! Unless you have some special thing up your sleeve, you're actually going down alone.
Die!
Him just standing all the way over on the other end of the arena, just revving his chainsaw. We do a little bit of trolling.
Die, die, die!
Move, mate.
We go together!
We go together. We go together.
Die!
Day. Boonk. Boonk, boonk. Are you not getting sore in your throat from all that screaming, Greenrat? Die! Boonk. Boonk, boonk. He has hyper-tuned vocal cords. Ah, that's why he has voice lines.
We go together!
We go together. Whee!
Die!
We both chainsawing it up over here. Boonk. Boonk, boonk.
Die!
And felt leave. Woohoo! I will say the first and final boss were like a completely different universe of difficulty compared to the second boss. Like, incredibly different in difficulty. Like, that's the thing, is that... and I said this earlier, that often with a boss fight, in like when soloing, it's either completely obvious that you will win, like unless the boss has like some weird mechanic that comes up halfway through the fight that can change things, you're likely to already know whether you are going to beat it trivially by like 80%. But if a boss is difficult or impossible, you're also going to know it relatively early. Like, the second boss was, like, just on the cusp of not being possible, I felt like. But it was possible. And when I actually got it right, it seemed to be very, very manageable. It was just, like, very tight on timing a lot of the time. Phil says, I think there's only 3 or 4 dungeon bosses in all of Stormblood that have voice lines. Dungeon bosses. Let's see. Well, Greenrod, Xenos, do the ladies at the end of Gimlet Dark have, like, voice lines? Because, like, I think that would be it. Did Greenrod actually die? I do believe he did. You have to remember the next thing that happens after this, if I remember correctly, is that the Doma Castle, like, falls, and Greenrod is either dead or knocked out in the castle. And I don't believe you see him ever again after that, so I'm pretty sure he's dead. Exactly as Lukatamagi says, either he died, or he died when Doma Castle died. He might also just die in the cutscene, that's true. But yeah, it is absolutely true. The second boss in oh yeah, that's true! That's true! He also has voice lines. But it is absolutely true that voice lines in a dungeon add so much to the experience. Something, I think I've brought this up before as a comparison, and you know how often I compare with World of Warcraft, but I think this one is a little interesting. For a lot of MMO gamers, the first dungeon they experienced if they played World of Warcraft was Dead Mines. Most of the bosses in the dungeon had voice lines. They weren't like particularly incredible voice lines, but they all said something. Regularly. They had said a bunch of things, like when you pulled the boss, and sometimes on specific mechanics they said something. Compare that to Sastasha, and that's a difficult sell, right? Like, that's a really, really unfair comparison, you could say. But it's not to say that one is better than the other, but more to say that voice lines in even a dungeon makes it more memorable. And I talked about that with what makes a boss fight memorable in a video. Like, Greenrod was made a lot more memorable simply by having voice lines. That's all it takes. Naked to Echo, hey Yumiya, I hope you're both doing very well. And that is also very true, Gigantic Pyro, that Greenrod just disappears quite suddenly. After being like almost like a Team Rocket style villain from like late Heavensward till, well, Doma Castle. Just gone. How was Doma Castle? Turns out the second boss was really hard. Randomly having to take 11,000 damage that cannot be mitigated is hard when you don't have that much more HP. Like, I had like 18, I think. 18,000. Speaking of hypertuned, I predict that Castrum Abania's second boss is going to be a problem to do solo unless the towers scale with number of party members. Well, usually it boils down to, does it give me vulnerability stacks? If no, then it becomes, can I survive it? If yes, then it becomes, can I reset the stacks somehow? Tyler says, I feel like the dungeon fights in 14 don't last long enough for them to invest much into lines. If the fight doesn't last very long, I can see what you mean. There were voice lines that we just saw Greenwald used, and I don't think I've ever heard him say. Of course, it was just like another variant of die, but still, right? But I think saying there's no point adding voice lines to dungeons because they're done too quick says more about the difficulty of the dungeons than the value in adding voice lines. Like, the thing is, we're going to be doing these dungeons for a long time because of, you know, daily roulettes and stuff. So there's, like, we're not going to do it just once and done, right? So that, like, we'll see them again. Amon has a lot of voice lines. Imagine if he had a lot of voice lines in the Alliance raid, right? Denizens of the Abyss, from ink of blackest night, I summon you. That one is a little, like, that one gets spammed a lot. Like, a lot. Not weird that you wouldn't forget it. Right then. More baked eggplant. Wait, what? Oh, we get inner release now. We get inner release now. No more beast gauge management. Woohoo! Awesome. Dead Ends and Mount Gold and Amarod also very good, and Aishiascope is also very good examples. Excuse me. I wonder if the hypertuned guys that you usually have like killed half of before they actually arrive will be a problem. And then we go for a little run. A little bit. Because, guess what? Ron's vision is ready again! Woo! Yeah, I can't remember how strong the hypertuned guys are, so that's why I'm, like, mildly concerned. Because I don't know if they will be a problem. I'm relatively confident I can't even, like, just, like, I might be able to stop one of them. Just let me finish my inner release first, and then I'll leave you alone for a little bit. Time for Kai's bi-monthly jog. Yeah, exactly. Running. You'd think that we were done with that when we stopped playing Scholar. But turns out, kiting is really efficient. Very effective for survival. Like, if you have a full heal every 25 seconds, of course you would be incentivized to abuse that. Oh, so good. Inner release is so nice. Finally, we have some on-demand burst. Zach says, I have to thank you, Professor Kai. Thank you. Gave me the thrill to solo sync dungeons as Dark Knight. Oh, that sounds really difficult at the higher levels. I hope you have fun with it. That is the only good reason to solo dungeons synced, is if you're having fun with it. Am I running the right way? Yes. I'm glad that I inspired you to also try soloing a bit. Oh right, the other pack just kind of spawned. They're just there like, where is everyone? They spawn into the room and then everyone's just left. Oh, they almost sniped me there with those point blank sudden tank busters with no cast. Something that happens at some point as we progress in levels is that the amount of damage the mobs just do naturally is so incredibly high that even though the 1-2-3 combo heals, it's pretty much meaningless. That's why I kind of stopped using it when it isn't like a DPS gain, because it doesn't do enough to matter. It's just better to get rid of the mobs sooner and maybe take a little bit of a jog if you need it. At least from my perspective. Imagine having Beast Gauge on AoE. Oh, just 4 more levels. Aren't we all looking forward to seeing if I can do the big mega AoE pulls in Hallminster Switch and Don Meg alone? The reason why Dark Knight has it immediately is because Stalwart Soul used to be learned at level 72. They just, at some point, decided to move it down to level 40. So, Stalwart Soul just kinda had it naturally from the beginning. I don't know why they decided to make it like that specifically for Dark Knight, but I suppose they kinda needed it a little bit. Don't you love it when there's ranged mobs in your pack? Oh, it's a wall. The wall! And I do agree. I'm not saying that it makes it reasonable that Warrior doesn't get it until level 74. I'm just saying that for some reason Dark Knight gets it sooner for another reason. Kitsuneko says, did I miss much of the stream? You missed us soloing Doma Castle, which was very, very interesting around the second boss especially. But there's still plenty of stream left. The boss is coming up, right? Oh, this is going to be mildly annoying. But there's a bunch of things that I feel like with tanks, it's a little weird that Gunbreaker has a resource generator for AoE at level 40, but they don't get a spender until level 72. It's a little weird that Paladin technically has a resource generator for both single target and AoE at level 60, like with Royal Authority, but they don't even have, like, they don't have a spender until like 64 with Holy Spirit. Like, it's a little weird that it is like Paladin just doesn't have very much until really late. I don't think that's super great. I would like it if they gave Paladin a little bit more magic a little bit sooner. And I don't think I'm the only one that thinks so. I hope not, at least. All the fell cleaves. What do you mean an opener can't be like 8 fell cleaves? Paladin getting a gap close at 74 is also pretty brutal, yeah. It's really nice that I can just use my fell cleaves as I please, instead of having to like stockpile them for berserk bursts. Are you just going to stand there? Ow! Are you just? Is that what we're doing? You just? Okay then. Is he bugged? I'm pretty sure they're supposed to leave. Hey, Sai. Hope you're doing well. Oh, there it is. Those tank busters are mean. Wow, they hurt. I am doing very well, thank you. You know, it's always the second boss, isn't it? It was also the second boss in Doma Castle, and I feel like there's actually a lot of dungeons in these solo streams that it's always the second boss that is really awkward. But I'm also very interested to see, maybe we can do it, maybe we can't. It boils down to vulnerability stacks and how much damage it does, I think, mainly. Good thing I had a defensive cooldown up for that. Fell cleave. And fell cleave. And come back. Fell cleave. What are you doing? Come back. You must die. Ow! That was not something that I had anticipated. Stun. Now you are the stunned one. You're very strong, Mr. Magnaroda. Come back! Grr. Guess I'll just wait a moment. Oh. My, Surging Tempest is actually down. Oops. Ah! Those tank busters hurt so much. So much. Oh boy. It just occurred to me that when it's just kind of standing there, I could just turn and smack it. Just like that. Didn't even have to stun it. I could probably just have caught it. Aradel says, I never realized they were human shape. They were human shape. Oh yeah! No standees or dummies on the floor. It's just, this is how you run them over. That's how it looks when they get flattened. Right, and we progress onward. But I've certainly set myself up for failure with this one. Amokius says, I was wondering about the Black Mage rotation. Does it matter whether you use Sharpcast for an immediate Thunder proc or rather for Firestarter? But let's just use it regardless. The long and the short of it is that it is better to use it than not use it, and the power difference between the getting a Firestarter and a Thundercloud proc is relatively small. So in most cases, as far as I know, yeah, if you can somehow game it such that you get a Thundercloud proc specifically, that is better. But it does, like, on average, the power difference between the two is relatively small. So it is better to just make sure you get your Sharpcasts used, if I remember correctly. But if you can, like that's the thing, is like, power difference, really small, optimally Thundercloud, but if you can't do that, better to just do something with it, right? I hope that is not a too confusing way to explain it. There's also the part that I should mention, that part of the benefit that makes it so that Firestarter is not that much worse than a Thundercloud proc is that many Black Mage tricks, you know, transpose lines and such, can be done simply by having a Firestarter proc. Like there's a bunch of tricks you can use for a DPS game that relies on you having gotten a Firestarter proc, and ultimately those tricks don't care whether you got the Firestarter proc by random chance or if you specifically acquired it by using Sharpcast for it. So if you're using your Firestarter procs optimally, then it means that it is a much less of an issue whether you got it, like whether you Sharpcasted Fire 1 or you Sharpcasted Thunder 3. Still pre-Paradox levels. I would actually say that before Paradox, it is possible that Firestarter is slightly weaker. Because the thing is that your Fire 3, the free Fire 3 that you're going to get with Firestarter, you can either use it for mobility, just, to run around if you need it, or you can use it, you can use it if you for some reason need to extend your current astral fire state. Like if something got in the way and you need to actually like extend your current state without exiting fire. That is another way that Fire 3 can be helpful. The third way is with transpose lines typically. The alternative to transpose lines is just to finish your astral fire state with an instant and free Fire 3, like it's better than no damage. It's very decent. But the specific transpose line, which, like, if you don't know what transpose lines are, which is very possible, are tricks that incorporate your very low level ability transpose for a damage gain. By like flipping mode with transpose instead of like a Blizzard 3 or a Fire 3. And the most common transpose line that you can use to make the most of your Firestarter procs is to use to enter Umbral Ice. You enter Umbral Ice. Do whatever you need to do, but then you finish Umbral Ice with an instant spell of some sort, so that you can use Transpose to switch into Astral Fire so you're Astral Fire 1 instead of Astral Fire 3, and then you use Fire 3. The reason for that is that this means that instead of casting Fire 3 normally from Umbral Ice, where it does 70% damage, you're casting it in Astral Fire 1, which means it's doing 40% more damage. That is, of course, compared to casting the instant Fire 3 from Firestarter before you exit Astral Fire, so that it's an 80% extra damage version. And then you have to cast the 70% damage version when you have to re-enter later. But basically, a 70% Fire 3 and a 180% Fire 3 is considered worse than one 140% Fire 3. And that is mainly because two 140% Fire 3s would be better than a 70 and 180%. Like, that is kind of the argument here, is that the two Fire 3s that you're casting normally by getting use out of the Firestarter are on average weaker than the Astral Fire 1 Fire 3. But the thing is, if you don't have Paradox, you might not actually have an instant spell on speed dial to do the transpose trick in the first place. I go over these kinds of tricks somewhat briefly in my high-level Black Mage guide, like going, you could do this transpose trick in this or that way if you have these things. At level 87, you would be able to perform the transpose line if you have a polyglot, for example. And you can just finish your Umbral Ice with Xenoglossy, transpose Fire 3. And that would be worth it, because the thing is, Xenoglossy does its full damage anyway. Like, the only way it wouldn't be worth it is if you have an opportunity to add your Xenoglossy to a burst situation, and not max level, it's unlikely to happen, right? That's fair, Mokius. Overall, what I'm getting at is that Sharp Cast is better to be used rather than sitting and waiting for the perfect opportunity. Beamy says, if you use instant Fire 3 to swap to Fire, you'll have less time in Astral Fire. That's true, but the thing is, you just, like, because Astral Fire lasts 15 seconds, just to be clear, it used to last less than that before Endwalker. 15 seconds gives you enormous amounts of time to cast 3 Fire 4s and then a Fire 1. And then 3 more Fire 4s and then Despair. So those few seconds you're losing from instant casting Fire 3 is not super important. However, if you exit Astral Fire with Firestarter, generally it's probably not actually helpful to like instant cast Fire 3 from Umbral Ice. So if you do that, you really want to transpose back in so you get that extra free damage, right? Right, so here comes the big, most exciting guest of the show. Hey Chelsea, hope you're doing well as well. Oh no. Oh, you can mitigate that at least. That changes some things. Again. Oh boy. That is a lot of damage. Just double, like, stack marker and then stack marker again. Discreet magic. I feel after the so the thing is, this boss before its rework was like either you get it and it's easy mode, or you don't get it and you just lose. Like, I have seen so many sprouts just die, and then you raise them and then they just die again because they don't get it. Like, if you don't get it, then you're not going to beat it. Well, you're just going to be lying dead on the ground while everyone else beats it. The new version is a lot more reasonable. Like, it doesn't kill you due to a gimmick. It kills you due to, like, beating you fair and square. That's a vulnerability stack. That is a problem. And it's a 2-minute one, I see. So hopefully it does it twice. Of course it does it twice. Why wouldn't it do it? It does it 3 times. So now I'm just taking more damage for 2 minutes. Awesome. Very painful. $20,000. So 3 vulnerability stacks. I think that doubled the damage. the old version of this boss was that he would say a specific element that his cup was overflowing with. And that was the element that you had to match. You didn't have to read it though, because his debuff said the same thing as Chelsea says. The thing is that it wasn't particularly clear that that was the reason that you were getting smacked back, because the way that it interacted with you was that if you didn't have the correct element, he would just smack you back for massive damage every time you attacked. I don't believe he would, like, immune your damage, so you would do damage and then get smacked back. Yeah, it's true, Yumi, it's no longer too full. So basically, all we need to stockpile and conserve everything we have in terms of like defensive cooldowns. Anything we don't need in the first part of the fight, we need to like save for after we get the vulnerability stack, because we're going to take 20,000 damage 2 or 3 times in quick succession, I believe. And the reason why I didn't use Holmgang for it is because I knew I was going to do it again. So I'm just going to see if I can take this in the face. I can. I don't need to do anything. That did 12,000 damage. I don't necessarily need to do anything about it if I can heal up again afterwards. But I really do need to, like, conserve both Vengeance and Rampart. And everything, really. Yeah, the 2 stack markers are perfectly spaced so that I can't use Holmgang for both of them. Oh, that really hurts, by the way. I need something here. So the alternative route is to use Shake It Off and then try and see if we can just avoid some of the vulnerability stacks. But I wonder if we can do it like this. Now, the thing is, I'm going to get more Vuln stacks. And I can't do this again. Like, I can't do this a whole round more, and I think I need to do it 4 times. Hmm. Hmm. Oh! My stacks actually reset. Exactly in time. We might be able to do this after all. Wait, my home gang will not be available in time. So maybe not. Hmm. Yep. I don't have anything else left. I can't do it. 18,000. Okay. Second idea. If I just, like, I use Shake It Off, that gives me a 15% HP shield, and then I just, like, face plant on as many defensive cooldowns as I can, maybe I can just, like, not take damage from some of the explosions, which then leads to the stack marker later doing less damage. Look at the Magi says, every time I do this dungeon, I need to explain towers and place markers, it feels like. That is incredible. I feel like there's multiple dungeons before this where there's the pillar markers, but I guess not. Aerodel says in Final Fantasy VI, after he has finished switching to all three elements, he enters into arrow mode and can only heal and scan the party. Isn't this boss like an optional boss in Final Fantasy VI? I'm pretty sure it's like he's optional, right? Like he's like a gimmick boss where you just have to figure out the trick to beat him, like to survive his massive damage. Nowadays, I'm pretty sure there's towers. I'm pretty sure there's towers in Thornmarsh. Like after its rework. Just as a random example, I'm pretty sure there are there is a tower mechanic there. Pretty sure, not 100%. I think there are. But the thing is that because it's a trial, there's a very high chance that whoever got into your group for Castrum Abania just ignored the towers and let someone else deal with it, right? And this circles back to what I was talking about in the tutorial video from yesterday, is that you don't actually have to do the mechanics in a lot of situations. You can just completely ignore them and it'll be fine. Ah, my shield's down. I used everything and I managed to block one Vuln stack. I don't know if that is actually going to be enough. Because now I have to deal with the mechanic without all of those defensive cooldowns I just threw on. Yeah. The thing is, even if I could have used Holmgang for that, it wouldn't change a thing, because I need to find a way to, like, deal with it with cooldowns I will have for every cycle, because he's going to do it again 2 minutes later. Like, the fight loops precisely on 2 minutes. So if, for example, I use Vengeance for something in the fire phase, then I don't have it for the lightning phase. The question is whether I needed all of the cooldowns to block that first vulnerability stack. If I didn't, then it might be possible with just, like, I just use Shake It Off, Vengeance, and Raw Intuition. If that is enough, then I have Rampart for one of the stack markers later. And if I can do it like that, then I think we might have a strategy, possibly. And then we go again. But yeah, we, like, either it can be done, like, perfectly consistently, as I've talked about, or I can't do it at all. Because the fight loops every 2 minutes, I just need to, like, find a way to consistently make it through the 2 stack markers after the first loop. If I can then consistently deal with that, then, like, we're in business. We might be able to do something about it. But if I can't do that, then I can't do this, like, at all. And I don't think there's any cheese we can do. Simply because the mechanics that are killing me are stuff that the boss is just doing. The only thing I would be able to do is I might be able to prevent the boss from auto-attacking me, like, once or twice by running away from it. But that would also mean that I am not attacking. If I'm not attacking, then I'm healing less. So it might not actually help. I'm wondering, maybe if I do it in the opposite order instead. Maybe I might be able to do that. Nope. That did not work. Okay, in that case, just take me then. Just fit. No, don't do that. Kill me! I need to restart the fight. It doesn't seem to be possible to stop 2 Vuln stacks by taking the second set. It has to be the first Vuln stack only. And then we just have to deal with the... Are you serious, man? Then we have to just figure out a way to deal with having 2 Vuln stacks for the rest of the fight. Cloud Deck Extreme and Castrum Marinum. That is a stacked Wondrous Tales. I think I didn't get to do Castrum Marinum synced back when it was current, but I did do Cloud Deck when it was current, and that was fun. I also just want to say I'm not just throwing myself at the boss thinking it's futile. I think there might, like, I'm trying to see if there are ways to get around this. If we can't do it, then there's no point in me repeatedly throwing myself at the boss just for the sake of it. But as long as I think there are unexplored avenues to maybe do it, then I want to give it a fair shot. And because the boss has so much HP, we have to find a way to, like, make it all the way through a loop. Like a complete loop with everything included. Congratulations, Sai! It's very nice. Ow. Right, so plan is don't get a Vuln stack from the first one. We'll try with Shake It Off, Vengeance, and Reprisal, I think. And Raw Intuition. The reason why we'll also use Reprisal is because, well, we'll have it. We should have it again in time. What? Well, I don't understand why that didn't work this time. But I don't think it's possible then. Oh, right, it didn't work because I didn't use Rampart, I suppose. So Rampart is required as well. Oh, that was way too early to use Thriller Battle. That was not what I had planned. So, the ignoring a tower both means that Oh, maybe Reprisal doesn't work on the towers. That could be. That could be. But I want, even if it did work, it would replace a 20% damage reduction with a 10%, so it might just not work. So maybe if we use Vengeance and Rampart for that. And then also Raw Intuition, that might do it. That might do it. Then we have Reprisal for the mechanic later. But it has to be, like, I need at least one of my cooldowns for later. I'll try and not use Reprisal. I don't think I used Reprisal on the one where it worked. Yeah, I agree, Chelsea. I feel like we are, like... It's rather close, because if we can make it through the second stack mechanic, just the second one, while, like, able to survive, then we might, like, if we can somehow find a loop that works, then it can be done. And we're very, very close to being able to do that. But I don't know if it is actually possible. And as I said before, the reason why I'm just not bothering with Holmgang is because we need to do this loop, I think, 4 times, and Holmgang will only be available for 2 of them. So I just don't think it's going to be enough. So instead of having a false hope and trying to force the fight to go longer than it needs to by using Holmgang and then dying to the next loop, I'm just choosing to not use it at all. Then we can always use it if we manage to get further. Like, to ensure a final loop if we make it past that. But we need to find, like, a cooldown combination that works for us to be able to, like, get further than this. I should not have used Raw Intuition there. That was extremely dumb of me. Oh, it worked! Okay, fine. Fair enough. Good, good. It somehow worked without Raw Intuition. In that case, I think it's very, very likely that Reprisal just doesn't work for this. How much tenacity do you have? Not that much, but not nothing. Actually, I have, like, pretty decent amount of it now that I look at it. Oh man, we're alive. Now the question is whether we can survive all the way to the next loop. Because the boss is still going to hit like a freight train because of the, yeah, that, for example. And then there's going to be the spread markers that I also had to somehow survive. I can use Reprisal because I will need it in like a minute. I used Holmgang there. I think we might not actually need a final loop of this. I think we might be able to do it. Potentially. Let's hope so, at least. This is going to be extremely close, I think. Whew. We did it! Nokia says, honestly, before this guy's rework, you could have soloed it easily, I imagine. I don't think so, because every time he had his cop runneth over, he would actually have 3 pillars. And if each of them gives a Vuln stack, if you don't do it, then you would get 2 Vuln stacks like every minute or so. And it wouldn't surprise me if it did. Now back to doing ridiculously large pulls. Now the thing is, we spent so much time on that boss that we might not actually be able to... There's a lot of ranged in this. That might be a massive problem. We might not have enough time to kill the final boss. That would be a really sad way of ending on that. It reminds me of when we did Castrum, and I ran out of time, like, just before we could engage the final boss, and then we had to come back just to see if the boss was even doable. We certainly don't have the time for if the boss is actually hard. Like that's not the kind of time we have. Yeah, exactly, baby. I don't think we would have been able to do it without that, without those shenanigans. Like, that damage difference was huge. I believe it, well, like, it added up over time, you could say. It wasn't exactly that that Vuln stack on its own made the difference. I think it was more like all of the damage that you skip by not having that Vuln stack. Fortunately, kid, so there's just one more boss. If there was two more, then we wouldn't have enough time. Like, we have a third of the timer left to do the final boss, so that should be manageable. It's just that the second boss ate all of our extra time. Just every single second that we had to spare was eaten, and I didn't even realize there was another pack that spawned there at the end, so that's annoying. So I think I've reached the point where, like, the amount of time it takes, you know, running in circles with the mobs, I think it is worth it because of the sheer amount of AoE damage I'm getting, and most of the packs would require me to get a little creative anyway. Thank you, Aradel. That was really hard. I really hope we at least get a few, like, at the very least, I want to get, like, a try on the final boss so that we have an idea of whether it's doable or not. It doesn't spawn until you defeat the others. Fair enough. It really sucks when you miss a pack, but if it wasn't even on the table, that's a different story. I think the final boss has a stack marker of some sort, but I might remember that wrong. It's really, like, stack markers has been, like, the killer for me. Because they just do, like, obviously they do a ridiculous amount of damage because you're supposed to be 4 players, right? But it was like the second boss in Doma Castle. The problem was a stack marker that ignored damage reduction. Now, the problem was a second boss that had a mechanic that you needed players to deal with that then caused a stack marker to be lethal. You had a timeout on a theochemical research facility. Ah. The healer had bought a skip and had never seen a stack marker before. Oh man. That's like my renowned Gimlet Dark run with a tank that had gotten a boost and didn't know what a tank stance was. Like, not really. In Gimlet Dark. And the healer and the tank weren't prepared for the final boss. With all the explosions and the beams and all that, and the lines. And none of the DPS could raise. And I was one of the DPS. I believe I was Monk. I don't think I've ever felt so useless in a group. Like, if I was a summoner or a red mage, I could have done something. Right. We're a little low on time, so I don't think I need that Infuriate that badly. $6,000 just flat out? Is that something I can mitigate, or is that how it works? Like, is it just a flat 6,000? I hope not, because that's a lot of damage. That was actually the worst possible time I could have used Vengeance, I think. It's the wobbly arm. It is mitigatable, but that dot... And also, that slash was mitigated. It just did way more damage because the boss is empowered now. Yes, do a mechanics and stop attacking me, please. That is a really random place for that proximity AoE. Yes, do avoidable mechanics. More of those. Yes, yes. Uh-oh. Oh. My god. I don't even know if I can do anything about that. Does that not like grab me if it... Oh no, never mind. It did try to grab me, but it died in the same instant, so I wonder if I was just lucky there. I did not realize that would be a knockback. The thing is, Phil, that was a inner release Fell Cleave that one-shotted it after I had softened it a little bit with Tomahawk, I think. It's even stronger now, by the way. Apparently it can get more stacks. Now it gives me a vulnerability debuff? Sure, why not? Did you know this? Did you ever what do you do if you reach me? Okay, you do that. Excellent. There's no way. There's no way I can do that. I got the boss to half HP, and it wasn't finished powering up, and it was already overwhelming. That's insane. That's absolutely ludicrous. I don't think I can do that. Yeah, Phil, I didn't even remember, or I don't even remember if I ever knew that it went up to 2. That's insane. Like, usually you only get to see, these days you get to see it like power up once. Maybe it just barely manages to power up a second time, where the ads start spawning. But then you just kill it before the ads get to do anything. That is absolutely bonkers. I don't think I can do that. Like, the way this has to be done at best is, like, before his Ketu Slash is powered up, I just need to face tank it with nothing and just deal with it. And then when it gets powered up, I need to make sure I have a defensive cooldown for every single one. Because while the attack itself is somewhat manageable, the dot afterwards does damage based on the snapshot. So if he gets a really, really nice, meaty hit on me with no defensive cooldowns, then I'm going to take more damage from the dot as well on top. But the dot is added when he gets the first power up at the very least, so I don't have to do anything yet. I have to do something after this. Yeah, that chasing our hand, I have to just deal with it with Tomahawk, because if it gets me, I don't think that was in time. I don't think that was on time, no. If it manages to grab me, I'm just dead. It's too dangerous. Like, it's an instant defeat if I miscalculate and it gets a clean hit, like, gets to grab me. So I have to just spam Tomahawk, and that's going to take a lot. Like, a lot of effort is going to go into that. And it's just time that I don't have, because there's also the one, like, going over with the bomb charge. Is it healer time? A healer cannot do the second boss. I don't think, like, if warrior can't do this, then I don't think anyone can. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. That was good. I don't know how much HP it has, so I have to, like, soften it every time to be sure. Shake it off just for the healing. I messed that one up again. I'm not sure on the angle of the knockback there. It's based on the proximity AoE. Yeah, not a normal job. I mean, we could go back in with Blue Mage if I deem that this isn't doable. We could go in with Blue Mage just to see. Blue Mage would almost definitely. Can't imagine they wouldn't be able to do it. I should maybe have saved my my inner release for this. Don't think it matters though. Ah. Diamondback on the stacks. It would be silly. I don't think I can do this though. I die at approximately the same point every time. I don't have the amount of defensive cooldowns and self-healing to do this, so I don't think there's any reason to like keep messing around with it. I don't think I can do it. I don't have any ideas. Like, if I save my inner release to deal with the claws quicker, then it means that the boss gets more damage on me, and it's already overwhelming after the first buff, and it has 3 by the time I'm dead. I don't think I can do it. I can't do it. But I think it's very interesting that we managed to deal with the second boss. Yeah. Blue Mage might be able to deal with the second boss either by Lamau turns out missile works, or it could also deal with it by maybe using Gobskin with Diamondback to maybe make it so that they don't even get Vuln stacks. But the second boss would actually be very interesting if it can be done. That is a shame. After all that effort with the second boss, we come to the final one and then it can't even be done. What's the problem with the final boss? So the final boss uses Ketu Slash, which does more damage the longer the fight goes on. Like, he uses it twice at the start and it's just damage, then he gets buffed, then it does more damage, so much damage in fact, that a 30% mitigation makes it do slightly more damage than normal, and then it also applies a dot. After a little while later, he starts spawning ads that you need to deal with on top. Those don't really do anything particularly threatening, it's just they take your attention away from him. But what matters is that the second buff to the left hand, which he gets after that, makes it so that the Ketu Slash applies a vulnerability debuff to you. And the dot. So it's just the fact that the boss does too much damage to deal with. That's honestly what it comes down to, is that the boss is just... He was too strong already, and he powers up as the fight goes on. And I wipe at around 50%, so that means he would have, well, at least one more power-up to go if they each get 2 power-ups. But, Oh, okay, it isn't as much as I thought it was. It's just that I was slow with the mitigation. Doesn't matter. At this point in the fight, it's still somewhat manageable. But the problem is mostly that the boss just hits too hard on top of having mechanics and ads. And here comes the second power-up. So it's just like a combination of things. It's not anything in particular that makes it impossible. It's like just too many things. I'm going to save Vengeance for the Ketu Slash after he gets buffed again. If I can. Wait a minute. Just occurred to me that I can cleave a little bit there for some extra healing. It's so much. He hits so hard. I just can't get that knockback right. Another buff to that. I don't even know what that does. There's no more quick charge thing. Crap. He's just too strong. He's just too strong. Like, it's not actually the mechanics themselves that there is some gimmick that I have to outsmart. It's specifically that he just hits too hard. The ads are, like, insignificant. You can deal with them. They don't hurt you. They don't do any damage. The problem is that the boss is too strong. He would be able to beat me without the ads because he hits too hard. Do you have Silence Echo active? No, I do not. Seems like my preview of the stream is also acting up. Strange. See, Beamy says, do you need to kill the ads? I think if you let the big hand do its thing, then it will make it so that the boss powers up faster. If you ignore the small ad, I'm pretty sure that it will just teleport to you. There's also the part that it's nearly impossible to do the boss mechanics while kiting the small ad. The thing is that... Oh, now my stream seems to be most on my end. My previous is mostly okay. It's also buffering weirdly a lot. Very strange. You can AoE off the ad for more heals. No. So the thing is, you can't do that with the small ad, absolutely, because if the small ad just as much gets a sniff, like just gets a tippy toe off you, you're dead. It's just over, because it permanently stun locks you until someone else kills it, and there is no one else. So you're just done. The thing is, yeah, you could AoE to heal off the big ad. That could work. But ultimately, as I'm saying, it's not the ads aren't a huge issue. The problem is that the boss is too strong, and because the big claw is a DPS check, it would be a very bad idea to like greed on that. So I don't think that would work. I think I have time for one last attempt-ish before it kicks me out, so I'll just go for it. Maybe the AoE healing on the hand will help to like stabilize a little bit. That is very, very strange with YouTube. I hope it isn't I hope it isn't too egregious. It seems to have mostly caught up for me again. Ow. Very interesting, the knockback from the proximity AoE seems to be something that it also unlocks throughout the fight. And now it's buffering again? Very, very strange. I don't think it's something on my end. OBS says that everything's fine. That helped a little bit, but I don't think it's going to make a big deal given how long this fight is. I should probably not have done that. I think I needed that inner release for the ads. I don't have enough damage. That was really so close. So what happens when it goes through? Does it get 2 buffs? Or what happens? I don't think anything changed. Huh? Oh. I'm actually not sure right now. Well, time's running out here. It might cap on 2 buffs. You might be right on that, Chelsea. It's really annoying that YouTube is messing up like that. I don't even know if anyone can. I don't know if any of you can hear me actually, because it keeps buffering on my end as well. I don't know how far behind everything is. But if you do hear this, like, I don't know, write duck in the chat, so I know how far behind you might be. Just write duck in the chat. Oh, it's not that bad then. Thank you. Like 10 or 15 seconds. Not that great considering that the settings are ultra low delay. Right. Well, I don't think I can do it. But I'll be right back. I'll be right back, and then I'll figure out what we do, whether we try more or because YouTube's being jank. I don't know. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. The access seems to be working fine right now though, and I come back to my preview buffering. So on that note, I think that it is going to be a terrible experience for me to try anything more. So we're close to where I would normally finish up the stream anyway. So I think that's just what we're going to do. Maybe we'll try again next time, like round 2 Castrum Abania. Maybe we'll just go Blue Mage. I'll have a think on that. But what we can do, perhaps, is talk a little bit about the run. So the I think it was Chelsea? Yeah, Chelsea said probably caps at two buffs. That's probably true, because after the boss got 2 of each buff previously, in a different attempt, I noticed that it stops spawning the big claw with the charge itself. Another thing that I noticed when it went wrong and it let the charge through there at the end is that it seemed like the boss stopped what it was doing to get its buff early, which meant that it didn't get as many tank busters on me. And after it got its buff, it was suddenly way busier with boss mechanics, so it didn't do as many tank busters. So it might be possible that just using the big claw as like free healing and otherwise just ignoring it will be better. Like the worst thing that can happen from that is that the boss will go, so it'll be 1-1. So it'll do 2 tank busters, then it'll go 1-0, then it'll do 2-ish tank busters again with a dot. Then it'll turn to 1-1, spawn the ad. We kill the small ad that will kill me, and then we just kind of ignore the big ad because don't really care. And instead of it becoming 2-1, it would become 2-2 immediately, and then the big ad will just not spawn anymore. But because the boss suddenly have wilder boss mechanics accessible, it might just waste a lot more time on boss mechanics. And I've talked about this many times before on these solo streams. The biggest mistake a boss can make is doing a boss mechanic that can be avoided. Like, if it starts making telegraphs or a spread mark or something that it has to cast, I don't care. That's going to do about the same damage as an auto attack. So, same-sees for me, right? So I could just ignore that ad and just focus more damage in on the boss and just use the ad for some healing. The thing is that if we were to do that, it would really suck to have to make it through all of the stuff before that again. And previously, when we were doing round 2 in Castrum, I basically brought a light party in. We did the dungeon basically normally, and then when we got to the final boss, everyone else just left, so I didn't get to benefit from the party bonus or anything. And then we just continued from there with more time for attempts to see if it is possible. Because the thing is, if everything in the dungeon individually can be done, and you can assume if we have no wipes, then we can do it. Then the timer's irrelevant. It's only if a boss takes 30 minutes each, genuinely takes 30 minutes, then that's another story. But none of these bosses take so much time that the timer would be a problem if you do it all in one shot. So that would be a way to do it. Grab a light party, make it back to the final boss, Inferno, and then see if we can find a way to do it. The alternative is to also just go in with Blue Mage and just steamroll it and say, we were there, and just go to the next dungeon. But I think that's something we'll figure out on the next solo stream. But yeah, I don't think there's any point in trying some more when YouTube is being really jank. Beamy says, what about trying it with Paladin? You could use Divine Veil for the invuln chi, similar to Shake It Off, and you might be able to heal more with Clemency. Clemency is 1000 heal potency. And the only way you would... so the thing is, if you're dead set on using Clemency, you would have to go 1-2, 1-2 Clemency, which is like it's an astronomical DPS loss, like an absolutely brutal DPS loss to do that. But if you did that, then you would get the equivalent of a 200 cure potency per GCD. So 200 cure potency. Just for the sake of comparison, Warrior has passively about 80, 90 or so cure potency per GCD by just doing their 1-2-3 combo. But Raw Intuition being 3 GCDs every 10 GCDs, so 3 out of 10 GCDs, means that you have the 1200 potency spread over 10 GCDs would be 120 cure potency. So if you combine that with the passive Storm's Path curing, you have more than Clemency's average, like, consistent healing. And then Warrior also has Equilibrium. And Shake It Off also has a heal over time component attached. Like, it's Paladin just doesn't have the same healing capacity that Warrior has. Dark Knight and Gunbreaker are also found wanting in that department. Passage of Arms being 18 seconds and 100% block rate, that could also help. The thing is that I think Paladin doesn't have the self-sustain to do it, is basically what I'm getting at. Divine Veil doesn't heal until level 88 as well. It's basically, the thing is that Clemency doesn't heal enough to justify it, because like 1-2-1-2 Clemency is competing with strategies such as just spamming Brutal Shell, and we discovered back in Dusk Vigil, I believe, that while Gunbreaker can do it, doing the 1-2-1-2, 1-2-1-2-1-2 Brutal Shell spam is such a like astronomical DPS loss that most fights you will reach a point where, I mean, the boss might just like beat over you, because at some point your cooldowns are going to slip up and you start to have to take the damage in the face. And the particular tank that takes that the easiest is Warrior, specifically because of Raw Intuition. What I'm getting at is, while Raw Intuition is, has a 25-second cooldown and only heals slightly more than Clemency, Clemency makes up for the lack of healing on your basic combo as a Paladin, where all the other tanks just have it. It's really weird. And Paladin doesn't get healing on their passive rotation until level 84, and it's very, very low, because it's 400 every 7 GCDs for the filler. So like, just for the sake of comparison, and Warrior is the weakest among the other tanks that do have passive healing in their GCDs. That's 83 cure potency per GCD if you're just doing 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2-3. Paladin could spam Holy Spirit if they wanted to. They could even, in fact, do 1-2-3 and then have like 400 cure potency every time. I'm pretty sure Riot Blade gives 1000, right? Yes, so Paladin could make it 400 every 3 GCDs at a, again, massive damage loss. But they could do that. And then if you don't want to lose damage, it would be 400 every 7 GCDs, which is, compared to 250 every 3 GCDs, it's not even close. What Paladin makes up for it with is Requiescent, meaning that you get, at level 90, you do get 4 extra ones. And actually also below level, like Requiescent in general gives you 4 extra ones. Oh, that is actually something that is worth pointing out, is that a lot of people say that that Paladin's burst is equivalent to a 2000 potency cure, like healing potency. But it's not entirely true, because it's actually only 1600 because of Requiescent. The final 400 comes from the assumption that obviously you're going to add a Divine Might to your burst. So 400 of those 2000 are not guaranteed, just so that we're on the same page. Requiescent is a 1600 potency heal on top of everything else. You need the Divine Might prepped for the final 400, which you usually do. But if you're in a boss fight, in a solo boss fight, and you need 400 cure potency, then that Divine Might is no longer labeled for fight or flight. That is labeled for I need to live right now. So you probably wouldn't do that. But there is also the part that I believe Expiation gives 500? I think it's 500? Yep. So every 30 seconds you would get an extra 500, and every 3 seconds you get an extra 200 MP. So, like, every minute you get 2 extra clemencies if you like, and an extra half one if you're using Expiation or Spirits Within on cooldown. Like, there are some options, but the thing is that Paladin is, like, in a dungeon context, in specifically a dungeon context, in a light party, Paladin is capable of sort of, almost, maybe a little bit keeping up with Warrior in terms of, like, self-sustain. Not because 2000 cure potency is, like, absolutely insane and incredibly powerful, but more so because, well, Warrior didn't need like just the infinity number cure potency every GCD for 4 GCDs every 30 seconds or so. They didn't need that. 400 or so with a defensive cooldown is probably perfectly fine, which is what Paladin has. But because packs typically are mostly dead by the time fight or flight ends, Paladin doesn't actually have to suffer the consequences of their 1 minute cooldown ending in a trash pack. It's like as if Paladin has like a slightly weaker Bloodwetting, much weaker Bloodwetting honestly, on a 1 minute cooldown, but because the pack is dead by the time it becomes a problem that it isn't a 25-second cooldown, you can kind of get away with it. And there's also the part that Holy Sheltron actually also gives you a 1000 cure potency over 12 seconds. So if you combine a Holy Sheltron and Requiescent, it's more like 3000 cure potency over 12 seconds instead of infinite cure potency over 8 seconds. And that, like, slightly more spread out effect of it might actually be, like, to the Paladin's benefit. That it's 3000 over 12 seconds instead of as much as you could ever need over 8. Like, those 4 extra seconds matter. Point is, the reason why Paladins feel more equal to Warriors in dungeons because of this is simply because you run into the pack, do a few GCDs, then you do your burst, and then you do a few GCDs and then the pack is dead. Usually. And as long as that holds true, then the fact that Fight or Flight and Requiescent won't be available again in that pack isn't a problem. But if you're alone, like solo, a pack will require you to, like, do that multiple times. At 90, I think Gunbreaker has better sustain with 2 charges of Aurora and Corundum healing. So first of all, at 90, Paladin gets all that I just described without losing any damage. Gunbreaker in the same context would have 2 Auroras. The thing is that the fight is probably not going to call for 2 Auroras, but they would be. Aurora actually heals for less than Holy Sheltron, because it's. Wait, no, it's slightly more. It's 1,200, sorry. For some reason in my mind, Holy Sheltron was 1,250. Aurora is 1,200, Holy Sheltron is 1,000. So there's a slight difference there. But you only get 1 Aurora per pack, because you're only going to be recovering 1 charge between the two, between the first pull and the second pull in a dungeon. And Heart of Corundum is 900 cure potency, so that is actually less than Holy Sheltron, and assuming the Paladin is attacking all the time, they actually generate a new Holy Sheltron in less than 25 seconds. Assuming that you're attacking all the time, which you're of course not when you're running between packs, but you probably don't need like 3 Holy Sheltrons. So the first pack you would probably have 2 Holy Sheltrons, and then the second pack you would have generated 1 more, and then generate an additional 1 while the first one ticks off. Something to that effect. So you would possibly have 2 Holy Sheltrons for both of them. Gunbreaker would have 2 Heart of Corundums as well, probably, if the fight drags on enough for 2 Holy Sheltrons to matter. But the key thing that Gunbreaker does not have in this comparison is Aurora is slightly better than Holy Sheltron. And Heart of Corundum is slightly weaker than Holy Sheltron. Assuming that all of the healing goes through, the key thing we have to remember is that Heart of Corundum pops when you will benefit from the healing, or when it runs out. The or being important there. So if we assume that a fight ends shortly after Requiescent ends, like shortly after Fight or Flight ends, you won't need 2 Auroras. So you will use Heart of Corundum, Aurora. Maybe you'll use a second Heart of Corundum, and then that's around 3,000 cure potency, right? And that is actually 3,000 cure potency. While Paladin would be able to continuously do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 to like keep up 400 potency every 3 GCDs, where Gunbreaker would eventually run out. Because Gunbreaker does not have self-healing on AoE, which is actually something Paladin uniquely has amongst the tanks. Paladin has spammable healing, attacking AoE. Not that it's optimal to spam it. You probably wouldn't want to spam it. It's only on 100 potency. It's complicated. It's a complicated comparison because we don't know exactly how long an encounter is. The only way to be able to know for sure is if you had a party ready beforehand, and you just replace the tank and do specific pulls, you know, scientific research to see what difference it makes, because the Gunbreaker might do slightly more AoE damage. Maybe the Paladin does slightly more AoE damage. People don't really worry that much about AoE damage usually, as long as no one is particularly out of whack in that regard. But if one of them is slightly better on AoE damage, the packs might die sooner. For example, like, this is also something Warrior has as a gigantic benefit, is that Warrior gets to open every pack, usually in your average group, within a release, which greatly compensates for Warrior's otherwise very, very underwhelming filler rotation. And Paladin gets to do Fight or Flight and Requiescent for most of their AoE packs, which compensates for their underwhelming filler rotation. Gunbreaker also gets to use No Mercy. Like, it's actually a tank thing, really, when you think about it. Incredible, YouTube. What are you doing? Why do you have to be like this? I'm not even sure how far behind I am in my preview. Several minutes. But it's complicated. The thing is, in lower level content, as soon as Warrior has Raw Intuition, it's dark, I guess. It's not really a contest, because Warrior just, like, on a single target, kind of blows everyone else out of the water, right? Gunbreaker gets to have their Aurora, but Warrior has Equilibrium to match, and Equilibrium is Aurora with no heal over time, like it's just instant same healing, and then at a higher level it's on top even more healing, and you can make that bigger with Thrill of Battle. So like Warrior just has like synergy that makes it so that Warrior just has way more self-sustain than all of the other tanks. And it just goes to show when you're doing like solo content that that's how it ends up working. But Gunbreaker is probably like the second choice in most situations, simply because when you get to the level range where, like, by the time that the Paladin has healing in their toolkit, like, consistently at all whatsoever, Gunbreaker has, well, they've had Brutal Shell for ages. That is an effective 400 cure potency because it's both 200 and then 200 barrier as well. And then you also have Aurora and Heart of Corundum. And Heart of Corundum kind of evens out with Holy Sheltron, and Aurora is then just more adjustable healing, you could say. What I mean by that is, and this is a common problem for Paladin, is that while Paladin has 2000 healing potency every time they do their burst, including the Divine Might, you're going to do that burst anyway. Like, you need to do that for maximum damage, so if you didn't need the healing, then too bad. Beamy says in trash packs, Gunbreaker lags behind. I don't know if it lags behind. The thing is that you get one Aurora every minute as Gunbreaker. That's 1200 potency. You get Heart of Corundum every 25 seconds. That's, let's see, 2160 cure potency every minute-ish, if we're just focusing on the healing. So that's a little over 3300 cure potency. Meanwhile, Warrior gets 2000 cure potency every 25 seconds. So that's over 4000 cure potency every minute. And that's just Bloodwetting. On a single target, mind you. On one target, that's 2000 every 25 seconds. Then you add Equilibrium, and Shake It Off, and Thrill of Battle. Like that. Like, I'm not saying that that means Gunbreaker is no longer viable. I'm just saying that the reason why people don't really look to Gunbreaker or Paladin or Dark Knight for self-sustain capacity, it's simply because Warrior is so far ahead of the game that it doesn't even feel significant to compare them. Chelsea says against bosses solo all the tanks can technically do it at 90. I feel like if there was one tank that would be like question mark soloing a dungeon boss, for example, I think it would be Dark Knight, just because it's very like it. Living Dead is like having Benediction on a 5-minute cooldown, but it's pretty much just that. Like that was all you had, and then you of course have TBN, but like Dark Knight is the weakest of the tanks in terms of self-sustain, but it depends on what encounter we're talking about. Because one thing that is worth considering is that at level 80, back in Shadowbringers, Dark Knight didn't have Living Dead healing you. So they just had Abyssal Drain and 1, 2, 3 combos. And I've managed to solo over half of the Grand Cosmos final boss as Dark Knight. Synced. Like, coincidentally, because my party died. So you can It's just more that the difficulty scale is very different. It's just the difficulty scale is different, and that's why. The thing is, I think that in most cases, tanks can keep themselves alive well enough in most content in a party. And in any situation where you're not in a party, where self-sustain becomes more relevant, Warrior is just so much better at it that people don't even bother to check. It's typically the same as how when we talk about what the best at any particular task is, usually what happens is you look at how much damage a job can do. And then if it has enough utility, then everything else is fine, you don't care. So it's very easy for something that is good at something defensive to fly under the radar, right? But it is, like, commonly accepted that Warrior has so much self-sustain that it's not even up for debate which tank is the best at healing themselves. Warrior might not have the best defensive cooldowns because a lot of its defensive cooldown real estate is invested in healing itself, which isn't always a good thing. But the way that toolkit is presented has a lot of good synergy. Like, the thing is, Thrill of Battle at max level, where it both increases your HP and increases your healing received, it is technically the same as about 16% to 17% damage reduction, because it increases your effective health by 20% without making you receive less healing, so it just evens out. But if you then start doing healing you would have done anyway, that continues to benefit from Thrill of Battle, then Thrill of Battle makes your healing bigger. So if Thrill of Battle was a cooldown Dark Knight had, it would have been way worse because Dark Knight doesn't have anything that has good synergy with that. But because Warrior has the self-healing and Thrill of Battle, it becomes better. But that's neither here nor there. My point is that I would be surprised if someone were to, like, say that after Warrior has Bloodwedding, that a different tank would be better at soloing a specific piece of content without, like, specific context. For example, a situation where Paladin might beat Warrior. A situation where Paladin might beat Warrior is if an encounter has a lot of downtime where you can't attack anything, but you're still taking damage. So you have to heal yourself, but there's nothing to attack, so the Warrior can't use Bloodwedding or Raw Intuition. But Paladin can use Clemency, and not only can Paladin use Clemency, they could stockpile MP leading up to that mechanic so that they could spam heal themselves as they go. Chelsea says they get 25. They get 20. They get 25% HP every 15 seconds from TBN. Yeah. The thing is, that you might not actually be able to use TBN on cooldown from start to finish in an extended fight. I say might because I haven't checked. At least not without going out of your way to do it. I don't know. That's why I'm doing some testing right now. You might actually be able to now that I'm testing it. Yeah, it does look like if you're specifically making sure you're only using your MP for TBN, you would either be able to do TBN on cooldown forever, or you would be able to use TBN for like 30 hours on cooldown. Like, it would take an enormous amount of time before you would actually run out of MP. And now it's buffering again. But the thing is, TBN is 25% of your max HP. Bloodwetting is... it gives you a shield of 400 potency. Just for comparison's sake. How much is 400 cure potency, actually? Do we have that on Warrior? Oh, right, we just used Bloodwetting and Smack once. That doesn't count, that was a crit. Around 9,000? 9,000? That's around 8% of your HP. So, like, Bloodwetting just comes with, like, a third of a Bloodwetting. Bloodwetting comes with a third of Bloodwetting. Bloodwetting comes with a third of a TBN on top of everything else that it does. On a longer cooldown. But you're right that Dark Knight does have something. The key problem is that any HP lost by the Dark Knight is something that you have, like, that really hurts, because it'll take a lot of time and effort to get it back. Because of the fact that your main sustain is not taking damage. And then there's the part that TBN gives you 25% of your HP in shield, assuming that it breaks in 7 seconds. So sometimes you don't even get 25% if the enemy isn't attacking. So it is complicated. Yeah, that is exactly the point, actually, that what tank has the best sustain can be difficult based on the situation, right? Can be complicated given context. As I said, just comparing Paladin and Gunbreaker, it becomes a huge question of, well, how long is the fight? Depends on how long the fight is, kinda. Because of how front-loaded Paladin's healing is. And Gunbreaker has 2 charges of Aurora, right? And Paladin has 2 uses of Holy Sheltron out the gate, right? So there's a lot of things that can be hard to consider when comparing them. I think that's partly why this kind of discussion just kind of have been boiled down to Warrior good at self-healing, Dark Knight bad at self-healing, for some reason. And then Paladin and Gunbreaker dukes it out somewhere in the middle. We don't really care. Even though, and this is something that often comes up, and this is something that I've talked about with logs over and over again, is that A good, B bad is sometimes a matter of this one is like 5% better than this one. Just 5% better. Which means this one is better by comparison to this one. So when I say something is good or bad, it's more like the perception, right? I just want to be clear that I actually did use Dark Knight for soloing content at much lower level. Because the thing is, Dark Knight has, before Brutal Shell gets its Brutal upgrade, where it also gives barriers, and before Gunbreaker gets Aurora, Dark Knight has the best 1-2-3 combo for self-sustain. The only reason why Warrior even has a horse in the race and becomes, like, just slightly better is because of Thrill of Battle. Like, I remember I sat down and calculated it and found that Dark Knight was better. Then someone brought up, like, are you sure that Warrior isn't better? And then we calculated it again, and I think Warrior won out by, like, they can heal, like, 10% better than a Dark Knight at level 30. At level 30. Because of Thrill of Battle. So it's not like the tanks are in completely different universes. It's just because Bloodwedding scales with the number of targets. That is usually the key to why Warrior is always viewed as completely broken, busted. But let's be fair here. It's not like like Warrior is actually impervious to damage, just flat out in an AoE pack, as I've said. You still need to find a way to survive between your massive healing. And if the fight goes on long enough, then you start running out of cooldowns to, like, tide you over between. Dark Knight versus Warrior is the thing, is it? I do think that Dark Knight could use a little bit more healing in its toolkit, despite everything. Two plus targets makes Raw and Bloodwedding strong. That's true, but I'm just reiterating that Bloodwedding is 2000 cure potency, or 1600 and around 8% of your HP and shield every 25 seconds. And it also comes with 19% damage reduction. The fact that TBN has a shorter cooldown is sometimes significant, but if you're like, if you're in a not trying to solo content situation, then usually the real problem is making sure that TBN comes at the right time, not all the time. The same applies for Bloodwedding, and that's why the extra cure potency is often very nice. I'm pretty sure the combination of damage reduction and shield is, on its own in a vacuum, remember, better than TBN. But thing is that 25% HP shield scales or stacks way better with other damage reduction than more damage reduction. Because TBN's barrier does not have a negative relationship with other defensive cooldowns, rather has a positive one because of how diminishing returns works. TBN should line up pretty well with bosses. I mean, that depends on when you time them. A cooldown with a 15-second cooldown window and a 7-second uptime window would have a pretty hard time of not lining up with what you need, right? And the boss would actually have to time it perfectly so that they do a tank buster right, like exactly off beat for that to happen. But in most cases, I don't think you would spam TBN in like a real, like, proper fight. Depends on the situation. The boss does come up at 1 minute. Really? Specifically 1 minute? That is very boring. Anyway, we might try and go back into Castrum Abania next time. I'm not sure. Either we'll, if I come up with some idea of how it could be done, then we might go back in somehow. Maybe we'll bring a light party so that we can get to the final boss and see if the final boss is doable specifically. But if I don't come up with anything, we will maybe do it with Blue Mage and then just move on to another dungeon. The thing is, it's interesting to progress on a boss fight when there is like, when it seems like there is a possibility that it can be done. But it's not super fun if it feels completely pointless, right? And I don't think it would be very interesting to see me just like wobble around for an hour against a boss that is clearly not going to give in. Like that was the thing with the second boss in Castrum Abania, was specifically that it was clear that it was one specific thing that needed to be beaten for us to beat the boss. But on the final boss, it's just, I mean, by the time we reach the point where the boss stops increasing in power, we were already kind of dead. Like, we were already like, oh, good thing you're done, because so am I. So it might be worth testing a little bit more, but I'm not sure how much there is to test. And if there isn't anything to do, then we'll probably go in with Blue Mage just to see how easily a Blue Mage can do it. I do think the second boss might be difficult after all for Blue Mage. And then just move on to the next dungeon and see if we can solo that. I think that would be more interesting. More entertaining. But with that said, remember that we are doing Small Kai's side quest tomorrow instead of Saturday. Same time as usual, just a different day of the week. We're doing more Astrologian leveling, hopefully reaching 70. And then something that might be worth just keeping in mind, especially if you don't have a character on an EU data center, something that might be worth keeping in mind is that the Fall Guys event is starting on Tuesday, and I plan to stream doing that. So if you want to like join for that, I'm pretty sure the only requirement to do the Fall Guys event is you need to have access to the Gold Saucer. I think that's like level 15. I think. I don't know if it's like if you can get to it a little sooner if you're starting in Uldar, but I'm pretty sure you just need access to the Gold Saucer. And yeah, then you could come along. And I'll see how many we can bring. I think we can only join with an 8-man party, or we need a full 24 players, and I don't think we can scrounge together 24 players, but we can get 8 probably. I would also say if you can, try and like, I don't know, maybe you can make like I believe it's also, isn't it Halloween on that Tuesday? I'm pretty sure it's on Halloween, right? So you could also make like a costume if you can. Alternatively, anyone that isn't on the free trial, I can hand out some cherry pink dye, and then we can wash over the Fall Guys event as a wave of pink. That could be fun too. So yeah, if you want to be part of that, you can probably, like, if you start making a character on any EU server, really, it's probably easy if you do it on Chaos, because we're going to be doing it on Chaos. Then you can join and play with me and everyone else in the community on that alt, or your main if you are on EU. So that's worth considering, and I'm saying it now and not tomorrow or Tuesday, because if you need to be level 15 and have done a bunch of MSQ stuff, then you would probably appreciate having a few days to get that done. Like, just mash through the cutscenes and all that, but it still takes a little while to get to that point, I think. There are some solo duties and so on. So, now you know. I will be doing the event on Tuesday. We might do it more after that. Who knows? But we will be doing it on Tuesday. Guaranteed, absolutely. And yeah, as Aradel mentions, All Saints Wake is tomorrow as well. There's an event to do on your character. We'll be doing that on Small Kai first thing on that stream as well. So you can enjoy that with me there. But I think aside from that, on Saturday for the weekly premiere, because I've moved that to Saturday to make space for Small Kai's side quest, we're having a look at 5 absurd rotations. Some of them actually kind of make sense, some of them don't. We'll talk about them, their viability, so on. Hope you'll find it interesting. And I think that's everything I had planned. Unfortunately, we only beat 1 dungeon on this stream, but I think we still had fun. And if you had fun and did enjoy the stream, despite the YouTube difficulties, sorry about that, it will help me a lot if you leave a like on the stream, like in the YouTube system that tells YouTube that it was a good stream and you enjoyed it, and that helps me a lot. So thank you so much in advance. And also, usually say this first, remember that we have a Discord community server that you can join, where you can find all of these wonderful people. Actually, I'm almost confident most of the people in the chat right now are actually in the Discord server. So, but if you are not in it, you could join it. It's totally optional, but you can both find the weekly schedule there much more easily, always available. And you can see announcements whenever I post a new video, plan a new stream. It usually shows up there first before anywhere else. And in the role assignments, you can choose the reminder role. Then you'll get a notification from Discord whenever I do post something like that. So, and you also get like a 15-minute advance reminder when something is happening, like something special is happening, like a stream. So you both get told when the stream has been planned, and you'll also get an extra reminder when we're just about to start. I think that's everything. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it interesting. Sometimes we discover something really fascinating about boss fights on these. And I do feel like we did see some interesting things on some of these bosses. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all very soon. Good night, good morning, afternoon, or evening, and bye-bye.